Are you planning a move abroad in 2025? You may be looking at popular European destinations like Spain, Portugal, or France as possible countries to relocate to. But what if I told you there are lesser known European countries that are not only equally as amazing as these places, but you may find the cost of living to be significantly cheaper and it may be easier to move to them. So in this video, I'm going to tell you about 6 European countries that may have slipped under your radar that you might want to consider relocating to in 2025. Let's get right into it. If you're new here, my name is Jonny. I'm originally from the UK, but I've been living and working in Madrid in Spain for the past 5 years. On this channel, I talk a lot about living abroad, traveling, investing and saving your money whilst abroad, and sharing my personal experiences with you. So before we get into the list of countries, why might you consider a lesser known country than a bigger one? Well, a couple of the reasons I touched on in the intro. Typically, popular destinations already have a large number of people living there and attract a lot of visitors and people that want to move there. So on one hand, you've got a higher cost of living because of the number of people that live there. And these popular destinations tend to be in countries with very strong or very large economies and very high levels of development. And with significant interest in a destination and a lot of people already living there, that means that the requirements can often be set higher and higher. And it can get to a point where only very specific profiles or people with significant incomes can make the move to those countries or those destinations. On the flip side, some of the destinations we're going to talk about in today's video are in smaller countries with smaller economies than some of these more established countries as well. And so some of these destinations are actively trying to attract people there, whether it be through immigration routes, whether it be through tax-friendly or business-friendly regulation, making things easier to get set up there. And so that in turn can make it more attractive and more appealing to people who are looking to make a move abroad. With that said, guys, let's get into the list and start looking at these 6 countries. So first on the list is the country that I visited for the first time last year and did a video sharing my experience there is, and we can say this country is Europe because part of it is in Europe and the other part is in Asia, and that's Turkey, or Turkey as we know it in English. Turkey is incredibly diverse in terms of what it has to offer. It offers big city living in the likes of Istanbul, where I visited, which is a very well developed city, by the way, I must add. But you've also got popular destinations near the sea, such as Antalya and Bodrum, just to name a few, where you can enjoy the beach, the sand, the sea, and warm weather. Istanbul Airport is a major international flight hub with connections all around the world through Turkish Airlines and other airlines. So for someone who's a digital nomad who's looking to travel frequently, move around a lot, or visit new places, and the flight connections are available for Istanbul will not disappoint you. From a tax and business perspective, Turkey doesn't necessarily stand out, although in the case of dividends and capital gains tax, you're looking at around 15%, which is lower than a lot of countries. And in the case of capital gains, 50% of the gains are exempt from that tax. So you'll essentially only pay that 15% on 50% of your total gains. In addition, if you purchase a property in Turkey and hold it for 5 years, it's also capital gains exempt. There's also the option to acquire citizenship by investment in Turkey when you purchase a property for 400,000 euros or greater in value. And despite not really having an income tax system that stands out, Turkey does have double taxation treaties with a number of countries. So it does mean that income won't be taxed twice if it's coming from another country and you're tax resident in Turkey, or vice versa. Despite significant inflation in recent years, the cost of living in Turkey is still very reasonable, and comparing it to the likes of Madrid, where I live, it's about 25% cheaper on average. I remember when I visited there as well, food in restaurants was very affordable and good quality food as well. I have to say, I really enjoyed the food in Turkey. So Turkey, a pretty balanced destination in what it has to offer in terms of quality of life. Maybe not so much to offer on the tax front, but in terms of someone who maybe wants to spend a significant amount of time there, travel a lot, then Turkey can be a great place to have a residence. All right, second country on the list is growing fast in popularity, and I really hope that I can visit there soon because it is starting to catch my attention too, and that's Poland. Poland has been experiencing somewhat of an economic miracle recently, and it is currently the fastest growing economy in the EU. Another country that doesn't have a tax system that particularly stands out, though there are some interesting tax incentives that do make Poland potentially attractive to the right kind of person. For example, if you're self-employed, an entrepreneur, you run your own business, you have 3 possible options for paying tax. You can pay a progressive rate based on your income. That progressive scale goes from 12 to 32%. Alternatively, you can opt for a flat rate, which is at 19%. Or in the case of your business's revenue is between 250,000 euros and 2 million euros, you can also opt for a lump sum tax payment as well. So it's interesting that Poland is proposing multiple different tax options for people who are starting businesses. They've even got a page on the government website helping you to understand which one might be the best for you to help you make that decision. In addition, whilst the standard corporate tax rate is 19%, for small businesses, that's businesses that generate less than 2 million euros per year in the previous tax year, can opt for a 9% corporate tax rate. And that's also applicable to businesses that are just starting out their activity as well. Outside of the business environment, you got cities like Warsaw and Krakow, which are very charming in terms of what they have to offer. Very historic, very beautiful. On my list to visit for sure. I hope to come there on time as well. And having come across a lot of Polish people throughout my life, I can say they're honestly some of the best people, the most friendliest and the funniest people that I've met as well. So if you do go to Poland, if you visit Poland, you're sure to have a great experience with the locals. Poland also experienced significant inflation over the past couple of years, and still in spite of that is also very reasonable in terms of cost of living, about 15% cheaper than Madrid. By the way, I chose Madrid for the comparison because it's obviously significantly cheaper than the likes of London, Paris, New York, Los Angeles, for example, in the US. So you can only imagine how much cheaper than these bigger cities some of the destinations we're talking about in this video are. Third country on the list is also somewhere that I need to visit, has become a very popular digital nomad destination in recent years, and that is Croatia. A small country with a lot to offer. Historical cities like Zagreb, with coastal cities like Dubrovnik and Split, offering great weather, very picturesque scenery. Again, Croatia doesn't necessarily stand out for its tax system, but up to 50,000 euros of earnings, you're typically looking at paying 15 to 23%, depending on where you live in the country. And above 50,000 euros, on income above 50,000 euros, you're looking at 25 to 35%. So not super low, but lower nevertheless than certain countries in Western Europe and Northern Europe. I think for someone who's on decent income and is looking for, the quality of life that Croatia has to offer, this could be a good option if that's mainly your focus. With its popularity, Croatia has also increased in cost of living over the past few years, but it's still nevertheless 10 to 20% cheaper than Madrid on average. And before I move on to the next country, I want to give a shout out and say a big thank you to Native Teams, who are kindly sponsoring today's video. Not only that, they're giving away 2 free global mobility assessments to the viewers of this video. Native Teams is all about empowering freelancers, remote workers, and their employers. Through their Native Mobility service, they provide visa and relocation support to digital nomads and remote workers. So if you're an established remote worker or digital nomad, you're looking for a move abroad next year, but not quite sure which country best fits you, then enter the draw for the 2 free mobility assessments. Native Teams will review your situation, such as your citizenship, your income, your aspirations, and they will suggest possible options for you based on what might be a good fit. To be entered into the draw, simply click the link in the video description and enter your details into the form, and the winner will be announced on the 15th of December. So that's 1 week that you have to be in with a chance of a free mobility assessment to help you choose where to go next in your journey of life. Thank you again to Native Teams for sponsoring this video. Now let's get back to the rest of the countries. All right, next country on the list, well known as a tourist destination, attracts some digital nomads as well, and that's the Czech Republic or Czechia. So when you think of Czechia, obviously Prague comes to mind, a very popular tourist destination where many people have seen the city, what it has to offer, and how it's a great place. I still need to go to Prague myself, but I got no doubt that it's a fantastic city from everything I've heard and seen online. Czechia has somewhat of an interesting tax system as well, with a top rate of 23%, and that's over 60,000 euros of income. That said, the particularity with this tax system though is that it is on all of your personal income. So the likes of dividends, capital gains, employment income, all go through the same tax brackets essentially. So may require a bit of tax planning outside of what one might normally expect if you're going to be tax resident and living in Czech. But again, much lower rates than you'll see in a lot of Western and Northern European countries. And Prague is about 10% cheaper than Madrid in terms of cost of living, which can be expected. Very popular city, has been for a while, gets a lot of visitors. All right, country number 5. Finally, we're back to some countries that I've visited. And this country, like, people should really be talking about it a lot more in my opinion, and that's Bulgaria. Bulgaria is situated in Eastern Europe, and also, despite being a relatively small country, has a lot to offer. So you've got big cities and historical cities, the likes of Sofia and Plovdiv. You've got a lot of countryside in Bulgaria. You've got mountains throughout the country, even one very close to Sofia as well. You've also got the beach in cities like Burgas and Varna on the Black Sea, which are popular tourist destinations in Eastern Europe actually. And I have to say, the time I spent in Bulgaria, I really enjoyed it, and I'll definitely go back and visit again. Now, Bulgaria's tax system is very advantageous. It's a flat rate of 10% on your personal income, and you can get a 5% discount on that if you're a sole trader. In addition, very advantageous when it comes to investment income, particularly dividend income. So 10% tax on capital gains, only 5% on dividends. So if you own your own company, you pay out a lot in dividends. That's potentially a big tax saving if you're a Bulgarian tax resident. Of course, what I say in this video, not to be taken as tax advice, but something to keep in mind. You can also be exempt from capital gains tax on properties in Bulgaria or the EEA if selling whilst you're a Bulgarian tax resident and you've had the property for at least 3 years. And so not only is this a very simple tax system as well, I think it's very, very advantageous as well. And the cost of living in Bulgaria as well, significantly lower than the likes of Madrid, 20 to 30% lower on average than a city like Madrid. So you can imagine, again, comparing to some of the more expensive cities in Europe, that would be a significant decrease in your cost of living if moving to Bulgaria. Now on to the last country on the list. This is a country I've talked about a fair bit on this channel, a country that I fell in love with when I visited there as well, and that is Cyprus. Now Cyprus has been a popular tourist destination, particularly for people from the UK for a long time. And Cyprus really, like, it offers the Mediterranean lifestyle, like, in my mind, at its best in terms of climate, in terms of food, etc, etc. But it's often overshadowed by some of the more well-known destinations like Spain, like Portugal, like Greece, like Italy. And maybe this is just personal preference, but I honestly just think like the food in Cyprus is so much better. The weather is a lot milder, especially in the winter, than in a lot of these other Mediterranean countries as well. And I don't know, there's just something about Cyprus that really, like, it has me, you know, like I love it, honestly. And so the popular cities in Cyprus, so you got the coastal cities like Paphos, like Limassol, like Larnaca, that are very, very popular among expats, investors, visitors as well, of course. There's a lot of property construction going on in Cyprus. I've talked about this in previous videos on the channel as well. You've also got the capital of Nicosia, which is more inland, but it's a great place to go as well to learn about the history of Cyprus. And when it comes to taxation, Cyprus is probably one of the more well-known in terms of the advantages that it offers. There's a generous allowance in terms of personal income tax. You got about 18,000 euros is tax-free in terms of personal income. Also has one of the lowest corporate tax rates in the EU at 12.5%, on par with Ireland, and I think only Hungary is lower than the two of them. So very low corporate tax. But the biggest tax incentive that Cyprus has to offer is its non-dom program. So essentially, Cypriot tax residents have to pay like a 17% special defense contribution on capital gains and dividends, but the non-dom regime exempts the beneficiary from that special defense contribution, which essentially makes capital gains and dividends completely tax-free in Cyprus. And so as one of the more attractive schemes in Europe, it does attract a lot of people. I think for that reason as well is why Cyprus is very much comparable to Madrid in terms of cost of living. There's not a lot in it. It might even be more expensive in certain aspects as well, perhaps rent in certain cities, and supermarket goods I think were a bit more expensive than in Madrid as well, more or less on par. But still, if you're coming from, you know, a London, a Paris, a New York, for example, then of course Cyprus, you're going to find it quite a bit cheaper in terms of cost of living. So there you go, guys. 6 European countries that I bet you didn't have on your radar, but you may now be considering thanks to this video. And all of the countries mentioned in this video, along with a range of others, are part of Native Team's Native Mobility Global Mobility Assessment Service. So again, don't miss out on the chance to get one of 2 free assessments. Follow the link in the description and fill in the form, and I'll announce the winner on the 15th of December. Leave a comment and let me know, guys, which of these 6 countries would you consider moving to as well. And if you want to see a bit more about my experience in the likes of Turkey, Bulgaria, and Cyprus, then be sure to check out these videos here where you can find out more. So next time, I'll see you on the next one, and let's get this money.